In 1985, my doctor sat me down in a cold little office with no windows. He looked at his clipboard, not at me, and he said, "You have maybe 5 years, probably less." I was 66 years old. I had a wife. I had grandchildren I hadn't held yet. And a man in a white coat just told me I was done. That was 40 years ago. That doctor is dead now. I'm still here. I'm 106, and if you give me the next 10 minutes, I will tell you exactly what I did differently, because it wasn't medicine, it wasn't luck, and it definitely wasn't what you think. But first, you need to understand how I got sick in the first place, because that part is probably your story too. I grew up poor in Mississippi. We didn't have much, but we had food, free to everything, bread with every meal, sugar in our tea, sugar in our coffee, sugar on our cereal. Nobody questioned it. That's just how everybody ate. By the time I was 40, I was 230 pounds. My knees ached. I couldn't climb a flight of stairs without stopping halfway. But here's the thing, I didn't think I was unhealthy. I thought I was normal because everyone around me looked the same. Everyone around me ate the same. When everybody's sick, nobody thinks they're sick. You understand what I'm saying? That's the first trap. The most dangerous lie about your health isn't something the doctor tells you. It's something your environment tells you. You look around, you see everyone doing the same thing, and your brain says, "This must be fine." But it's not fine. It's just common. And common is not the same as healthy. By 50, I had my first heart scare. Chest pain at the dinner table. My wife drove me to the hospital. They ran their tests, gave me pills, and sent me home. They said, "Take these every day, watch your salt, come back in 6 months." So I did. I took the pills. I watched my salt. And you know what happened? Nothing changed. I felt the same. My body felt the same. The pills weren't healing me. They were just keeping me from dying today. There's a big difference between not dying and actually living, but I didn't figure that out yet. Not for another 16 years. At 66, the real diagnosis came. My heart was failing. My kidneys were struggling. My blood pressure was so high the nurse checked the machine twice because she thought it was broken. That's when the doctor gave me the 5 years. Now here's where most people would do one or two things. They'd either give up and wait to die, or they'd panic and do everything the doctors say without asking a single question. I did neither. And that choice, that one stubborn choice, is why I'm talking to you right now instead of rotting in the ground. See, my wife had a cousin named Dorothy. Dorothy was 87 at the time, and she was sharp. She walked 2 miles every morning. She cooked her own food. She laughed more than anyone I knew, and she was not on a single medication, not one. So I asked her, I said, "Dorothy, what's your secret?" And she looked at me like I asked the dumbest question in the world. She said, "Baby, I don't have a secret. I just stopped eating what they sell and started eating what the earth grows." That sentence changed my life. Let me say it again so it goes deep. She said, "Stop eating what they sell. Start eating what the earth grows." I went home and I looked at my kitchen, really looked at it, boxes, cans, frozen meals, bags of chips, bottles of soda. There was barely anything in that kitchen that didn't come from a factory. And I'd been filling my body with that for 66 years. 66 years. No wonder my body was quitting on me. I'd been poisoning it and calling it dinner. So here's what I did. And I need you to hear this because it's not complicated. That's the whole point. It's so simple that people don't believe it works, but simple doesn't mean easy, and easy doesn't mean effective. What works is usually uncomfortable at first. The first thing I changed, I stopped eating anything that came in a package. If it had a label with ingredients I couldn't pronounce, I didn't touch it. Vegetables, fruits, beans, rice, fish. That became my world. For the first 2 weeks, I hated it. My body was screaming for sugar, for grease, for everything I'd been feeding it for 6 decades. But I told myself something. I said, your body is not craving what it needs. It's craving what it's addicted to. And addiction is not the same as hunger. You remember that. The second thing, I started walking, not running, not lifting weights at some gym, walking. Every single morning I walked for 30 minutes, rain or shine, cold or hot. My wife thought I was crazy at first, but after a month, she started walking with me. After 2 months, the neighbors joined. It became something beautiful, but it started with one man in pain putting one foot in front of the other because he was too stubborn to lie down and die. The third thing, and this one nobody talks about, I stopped watching the news before bed, and I stopped arguing with people who drained my peace. You don't think that's a health decision? Let me tell you something. Stress is the silent killer that no pill can fix. I watched friends die not because their bodies gave out, but because their spirits gave out. They were angry all the time, worried all the time, carrying grudges that weighed more than their bodies could handle. I decided I would rather be peaceful than be right, and that decision alone probably gave me an extra 20 years. Within 6 months of those three changes, my doctor couldn't believe my numbers. My blood pressure dropped. My kidney function improved. I lost 40 pounds without ever stepping on a scale. He actually looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" And I told him, and you know what he said. He said, "Well, keep doing it." That's all. No explanation, no curiosity. Just keep doing it because they're not trained to understand healing. They're trained to manage disease. And those are two very different things. I'm not telling you to throw away your medicine. Don't do that. I'm telling you that medicine alone was never designed to save you. It was designed to buy you time. What you do with that time is what determines whether you live or just survive. I've watched 3 generations grow up. I held my great-great-granddaughter last spring. She looked up at me and she smiled, and I thought to myself, that doctor in 1985 said I'd never see this. He said my story was over. But stories don't end when someone else decides they're finished. Stories end when you stop writing them. You're young. You think you have all the time in the world, and maybe you do. But let me tell you what 40 extra years taught me. Your body is listening to everything you do, every meal, every walk you skip, every night you stay up doom scrolling instead of sleeping, every argument you carry into the next day. Your body hears all of it, and one day it will answer. Don't wait for a man in a white coat to tell you your time is up before you start actually taking care of yourself. Start now, start today, not because you're scared of dying, but because you deserve to know what it feels like to truly be alive. I'm 106 years old, and the only reason I'm still here is because 40 years ago, I stopped trusting a system that profits from keeping me sick, and I started listening to a woman named Dorothy who just told me to eat what the earth grows and walk every morning. That's it. That's the whole secret. It was never complicated. We just made it complicated because complicated SELLs. Simple doesn't make anyone money, but simple is what kept me alive. Now you know what I didn't know at 66. The question is, what are you going to do about it?